Okay, hello, can you hear me? Should be here now. Um, so I'm just loading up my project for this evening. Okay, cool. So this is the our first video, hopefully in a series, because this all came about because I spend probably way too long on Discord talking to folks while I'm at work. But at least if I do it this way, I can actually be working while I'm doing that, and it should be a good way to do something like things different than like what I usually do. Take the requests and whatnot and grab some feedback, stuff like that. Anyway, so the suggestion for today was a dwarf with a pipe, working a pipe. So I have some art up for that, and get started. Cool. All right. So okay. So the idea, hopefully, with these is also to explain sort of how it works as I'm doing it, so that when you guys are if you guys are experimenting with sculpting, then you can either refer back to bits of the video or things like that and do it yourself. So there's a couple of cheats I'm going to take so that this can be done ideally in under 3 hours. So some of those are going to be pre-made assets, things like hands and faces, but I will go over those. The things that I'm going to talk about today are a little bit on posing, and then fabric and hair. The hair is going to be a big one because of the beard and the hair as well as the fabric. Okay, so when I open up ZBrush, everything starts with a file with a 25mm base, because when you're one of the things with sculpting digitally is that it's you can't see how big the thing is you're working on. So I find a base sort of starts that off, and it's something that I can have in my hand as well, a model, and then it just helps for the proportions at like a reference. Right, so we need to start with a pose. So I've got in here two different pieces. So this is a human scaled down, as well as a dwarf. And then I've also got around here a whole bunch of bodies. So this is what I'm talking about with more or less cheating to start off with. So we're going to find one of these. I believe it's going to be this one. Slap that into the scene. So in ZBrush, it's unlike Blender, where in Blender you have sort of one big open area and all your pieces in it. In ZBrush, you've got all of these tools, and then obviously you've got your subtools inside of that. So it's multiple sort of scenes. And so what's decently useful is to have all the things open already that you've got to use. So for us, at the moment, it's going to be faces. So I've got a catalog of faces that I normally start with. Hands, I've got here as well, shoes, and yeah, anyway. So starting with, okay, this one. So I scaled down the body to about 80%. I'm going to go just a fraction further. So in ZBrush, when you have all your different tools, they don't all have to be one object. So if I come into this tool here, so this one shows you all of the polygons and lines. So if I turn on auto groups, it will make all of these a separate object that I can re-edit. Because this was a person, I've scaled it down. I only want to keep this, well as I will keep the pants. I want to keep the shoes. Okay, so let's turn those off and leave this one on. So for the pose, that off entirely. We want a face that's going to look like he's smoking. So I'm going to probably have him face the other way. So let's cut that off. So to cut that off, in ZBrush you have your active tool. So move in this case, brush, and all the different brushes. If you hold Control, you get your second brush. If you Control Shift, you get a third. So if I'm going to grab the knife curve and just slice the head off, it'll come back to here and pick a face that's somewhat calm that we can edit. Ooh. Grab the browning one will do. Come back to here. Okay, cool. Thanks. All right, so now we're going to make this look an awful lot more like a dwarf, as well as the pose. So I'm going to come in and start with just fear. So everything I do starts with spheres, all the cloth, all the fabric, and all that kind of stuff. So before we come to the arms, let's do a little bit of work on the body. So I'll turn this one down, turn on Dynamesh. I'll change a little bit this. So it's going to be a little bit of thickening up the quads. So this is all quite rough underneath. All of this is going to get covered with sort of fabric. Um, Essentially here we almost want to create sort of the beer belly of the dwarf, and then the rolls of fat that are going to sit on top of him. So we've got the backs. There's not much of a neck, which is all right. A bit more in the flats, and the thicker width around the back. Anyway, cool. All right. So for this, I think we want the arm to sort of come across like the body here, and then holding the pipe out to the side. And so if we put in the pipe first, actually, cool. So if we start with the pipe, this will just be a placeholder. We'll put a proper one in later. It's just going to be okay. Will be roughly the length of the piece we'll make, and then put in there later. So I think a good one for this one actually will be with this face. If we lift up one of the eyebrows off one of the other ones, like a sort of a bit of a smirk. We'll come back to that later. But okay, so we need the hand to come out and sort of hold this here, and then the other one to sort of rest underneath it. So if I grab this sphere, scale this up, put one of them in on that shoulder, the other one in on the other shoulder, put in another ball just in here, scale that one down, be one of the hands, another hand just under this pipe here, another one for the wrist. So we'll play with all of these distances in a second, but this is just plotting out where the elbow is, where the shoulder joint will be, and then we'll connect all of these in a second. You've got to visualize with this the arms like to the between these balls. So if you can picture this one as the hand, we've got a so this is the wrist, and because we'll swap the hand out to a pre-made hand here. In fact, I might actually just open up one that we'll use, which is back to this, and I will oops, see if we can get rid of them and put the hands in. So the proportions for a dwarf in movies, obviously they're played by humans who are scaled down. In some different TV shows and movies, they interpret the idea of like, should their heads be the same size as people, just shorter, or should the hands and heads be smaller, all that kind of stuff. I'm going with the hands and head should be the same size as a real person, so hence I've used a head and a hand that hasn't been scaled down, and thicken everything else up. But that's a preference thing, but it also works well for miniatures, because in miniatures it needs to be exaggerated. I'll pull these across now. So here, this arm is looking a little long. I'll just pull this across and then go this one, pull that down and across, and pull this one down. All right, cool. So this starts just like the arms, and now we'll put in all of the muscle that goes around that, and everything is built up in layers. The So for instance, the arm right now is going through the belly. We'll tweak that in a second. So I'll split these two up. So firstly to combine them, because right now, as I mentioned earlier, they're all separate polygroups. If I go Dynamesh, turn that resolution up, it will merge them together. Auto groups to make them all separate, split to parts. Splitting to parts means now I can set the origin point to this shoulder and turn that gizmo so that I can twist the arm. That way I can bring it sort of in front of that belly. Anyway, so from here, let's put in some rough, like set of muscles. Make sure that all looks right. So we're going to build this up quite rough, and then there's a process to smooth it down. We can get rid of the other one for the moment. So from here, we need to build up. I start with the forearm first. It's the one we're going to see. So I start with the muscle that sits on top as well as below. And then we know that there's a little bump here in your hand and here. And then it's just essentially connecting the dots. There we go. There's that thick forearm. So at the moment, it's adding a lot, and it's so some of these bits here are sort of too far out. We get rid of those later because we'll come back and smooth it down. So in an arm in isolation, the bicep has to be on the inside. So we'll bring that out, and then the tricep as well. Sort of helps to know a little bit about muscle anatomy. I'm sure most folks have gone to the gym at one point to know a little bit about how the tricep looks like a horseshoe. And there's obviously the front delt. Across here, the insertion point for the shoulders is going to be there. So the rear delt. Across. And then the different parts of the shoulder. So that's essentially the rough, a rough go of the arm. Pull that in a little bit, and then we'll tweak that in just a second. So I'll kind of mesh that off. Keep that. We'll come back. We'll come to this one now. So we need the hand for that one. So I'll come across. The hands are all just sort of iterations off of each other. The most applicable one will be this one. Come back. So let's mirror side. Okay, it's already facing the right way. Put that up. Alrighty. So that's sort of how he's going to be holding the pipe. His head, yeah, the hand will be sort of here. Forward, out. This belly in here is going to get a whole bunch of layers built up. I'm actually going to just make this one separate and bring that one right back just before we got rid of the head there. Shoulder, body. Yeah. So pull that forward a little bit. Grab the hand underneath. All right. Essentially merge those two now. Turn the resolution up because the fingers have a little bit more resolution. Right. So now here, I'm going to go in a little bit softer. Turn down the intensity, or if you've got a tablet, just press softer, which is what I'm doing. Since I last did videos, I've gone and got a tablet with the pressure. Yes, there were a lot of comments saying, "How on earth were you doing that with a mouse?" Yeah, I don't remember anymore actually. So now you built up all of these sort of lines, right? Now with the flattened brush, I come in, just smooth them all out, and get these nice flat planes. And you can see it's sort of increasing in circumference from the wrist up to the forearm. Getting the volumes in here right is really handy because from this we're going to extract the sleeve. Add on. Anyway. here. All right, now let's turn off Dynamesh with that. So this tool up here, just quickly reason turning on and off. If I turn on polyframe and the resolution down, turn on line, you can see all of these squares. At the moment, if I smooth stuff out, it doesn't change the squares, the polygons where they are. If I turn on Dynamesh, or Act Sculptris Pro rather, it will add in little ones depending on the resolution. But we don't need that. And sometimes you want to smooth things out without adding that, because especially when you do it from far away, it will mess with resolution. So I'll turn that off. Now here, let's get those points in a bit better. All right. So the arm needs to be a little decently beefy because they're going to have all the muscle as well as, of course, the layers of body fat that dwarves will have. Alrighty, and that shoulder's sitting fine next to the trap muscle, which is there. It's good enough for now. I might just pull the wrist in a little bit further. Okay. So yeah, he's got a bit of a lean. He's doing his smirk. He's sort of holding his arm sort of under where the other one will be, sort of towards his body. So those fingers will need to in, but as well as off the stomach. Anyway, so one of the tricks to sort of easily smooth things out, and not that there's much in here anyway, is just decimate it. So decimation takes something that's a higher poly count down to a lower one. So it also makes the polygons run sort of where you had that sort of definition. So then you can sort of smooth it down and it'll just soften it, but sort of keep some of those points. It's not what the tool's for, it's just a happy side effect. Then I'll just turn that resolution back up. Anyway, so that's one arm, that's fine for now. Now I've got the second one. So this here, yeah, that's more of a pipe. That wrist is here. And yeah, okay, we'll play with how that sits in the hand later. Not covering hands, obviously, today, but we will have to do a little bit. So we don't need this hand anymore. So this subtool here, the polysphere, has both. One was obviously hidden by the other hand. We can delete that now. That was just a placeholder to tell us where this arm would be. So in here, we're going to do the same thing we just did. So this one, I might just put in a bit of marks. At least the lines for the shoulder. Don't know much about muscle anatomy. Have a look at like Arnold Schwarzenegger, bodybuilders and stuff like that, where they have the striation, so the lines running up and down the muscle. I sometimes like to put those lines in first, just to tell me which way the pieces are going, as sort of a bit of a reference tool. So this one here is the brachialis that connects to the forearm, which is going to be really thick and built up here in a second. The bicep goes all the way back up to the shoulder on the inside. Delt there. Tricep from this way. Again, I generally start from the forearm. It was just because I was watching that shoulder when I looked at this piece, and that's I thought about, okay, I'll put that there straight away. So I need to pull that in a bit. Anyway, so let's get this forearm now. The same thing again. A muscle sort of starts here, finishes here, and it gets quite thick because the arm is curved. So let's fill that gap, like it's relatively straight. Okay, so on the inside, it's the exact same deal. So yeah, if you hadn't clicked that, this button up here is solo on and off. So okay, that piece starts there, finishes here, draw the line. Now the thickest point needs to be just there. Alright, so this is too thin. Got the hand here and the wrist there. So we need to do those things. We need to fill in this inside. On solo again. Build up this plane as well. And just pull this forward just in general to thicken the whole forearm up. Okay, so under here, because I had the resolution set a little bit lower than I've done the other one, that's why we've ended up with a lot more sort of squares. Turn that up. There we go. Now you can see the sort of the shape, the shoulder taking shape. Brachialis, bicep, bicep. Okay, turn that off. Cool. Just fix that shape, get a slightly pointier elbow. Alrighty. I like a bit of sort of symmetry. So right now we've got this leg at this angle. The arm is at a similar angle. And this leg is more vertical, and so is that arm. But if you sort of connect that point to this point, yeah, I think it feels more vertical than this arm. So just go grab. So with the move brush, if you can obviously move things around. If you move it normally, it will pull lots of the stuff around it and then less the stuff further away. If you turn on AccuCurve, it will pull from the point you pull. So it's sort of the opposite sort of, instead of this curve, you get the opposite one. So if I scale that right up, bring that arm out, now it sort of looks like at a similar angle or equal to this one. So it just is a bit of sort of symmetry still on the lean. That's sort of really, it becomes really important. Like this looks just too cramped. We need to give the models a room to breathe, especially for painting, as well as we're going to add all these other layers in here. So right now, obviously that forearm is too long. So I'll just pull that forward. Still obviously adding shape to the arm. So like we're not worried about anything getting deformed. We just need to make sure that this distance here is about the same. Fraction longer. Here. Now let's merge that down. Okay, so all right. After we get through this autosave. Yep, the spinning blue wheel of doom. That just happens. ZBrush is not the most stable program. So in here, obviously, this shape is all wrong. Let's pull that straight. But that's what we've got the flatten brush for. Go in and just straighten those pins and fix the shape. You kind of want the cross section to be, well, normally more of a circle, but it is going to be flat on this side and then a triangle. So start with round, and then you get to some of that sort of, I've got to control Z that, more of the triangle. Come back in. Up. Front. So again, we still haven't got quite a straight line here. Pull that out. That's a better forearm. Here. Flat. Alright. Come back in, fix that hand. So with the pipes, the thumb will run a different way. The thumb will probably end up going up. These fingers will all change. But I will just do a bit of the thumb now. Yeah, that way it will be there when it will remind me later. I want the thumb going up. Just build it up. Pull it across. And it will go up. We're going to put a little bit of a cup sort of in there. And yeah, we'll have to come back and flesh those fingers out. Solo. There we go. All right, so that's the sort of that's the pose. That's all right. That's a good starting point. The place I start first all the time with everything is a belt. Got another document up there, which is go into that in a second. So I'll put the belt in first. So that is just here. Cool. So this one is pre-made based off a sort of generic dwarf proportions. It's already got some of those torsos sort of pre-built up, stuff like that, thickness of the arms, thick legs. This was one made back in February. So I don't believe I did have legs underneath it, but it wasn't too flash. It's just got boots and a head. We're not going to use much of that except for the belt because I liked where the belt was. Cool. So the belt is sort of in the right spot. I think the belt's always good sort of to start. Every model has one, and it gives you something to start the torso from as well as the sort of the legs. So decently all right with how the rest of the dwarf is sitting. Pull that back, put the belt a little higher over the butt, lower that way. I think belts sort of sit lower over the front. So from here, it's really picking up or down. So with dwarves, never there's not much to say what their collar should look like because the collar you never see it because of the beard. So um, I I reckon when we do these sort of beards to save time, sometimes I would start with the beard and with the hair because it sort of tells us how much work we need to put in elsewhere. So if I do this, so we want the hair to come probably quite far down the back. Pull that sphere down, across, and then on the front. So we're going to draw in where the beard is first, and then we'll look at whether it's sort of like, as in, we might replace this piece later with bits of plait, bits of ponytail, um, rings in the beard, things like that. But it's it's just a guide for how much effort do we need to put in on the shirt. So, for instance, you don't want to spend all the time on, like, if he's wearing a cloak and there's a little buckle holding the cloak up and it's a dwarf, you're not going to see it. So beards are always fun. It can either be, one of the ones that comes in like that, could be out to the side. I reckon that's what we'll go. We'll go with the big wide whiskers. I'll just draw that in. Obviously, got to come behind the pipe. Pipe actually would be a handy thing. Would be a handy thing to sort of get out of the way. If we put in these great big whiskers, we'll add texture to it later. In the front, what about rings, plait, at the side of that, and then just for say for it is hair out here. So again, this is not to put in detail; it's to tell me the lines are running this way, in that the fur is going to sit facing this way rather than going back. And it is just building up that shape. So the shape is it's one of those things where we look at it like, if you go from this angle, I know that things in the way. It's sort of a perfect curve at the moment, but if we just grab that move brush, we can pull it down so that it goes straight and then it's got this drop off. I'm going to leave that for now because until we work out how thick these layers under here need to be, it's sort of a moot point. So on here, where should the hair come from? I don't know, bald, not bald. I definitely think a receding hairline's a bit there. On top doesn't really matter at this point because we're going to come in and smooth all that out when we do the actual detail of it. But okay, we know the hair is going to sit somewhat this direction, shape to it. So which way is the head turning? So the head's turning to the right. So the hair should be sort of pulling from the left. No, hang on, pulling from the right to the left, sort of in this sort of direction. That doesn't really matter. No one's going to notice if you did it the other way. It's just the way that it's going to inform the way I make it sit. Right, so we've got that. I'm going to dress this dwarf just in very simple sort of boots and sort of chainmail, gambeson, things like that, sort of underneath here. Sleeves can be the same, sleeve, gambeson, chain, and then sort of an overcoat. We'll definitely put some details on the belt, things like that. Just something simple. Might even skip some of those bits, but okay. So start with boots. If we come to this one, so I've got a bunch of pre-made sort of shoe assets. There's some more elfy ones, some stylish ones, all of the sort of leg wrappings. So I want to go with the ones that I've gone with before. library. All right, let's go. Actually, sorry. The difference between picking these is not about what's on, as in which ones are almost finished. It's more which spot to start with. Actually, we'll come up to these ones. Back. So over here, we've got the standard dwarf. I'm going to take this one away. I don't need that. That was just morning. Let's get rid of these shoes. So a lot of the pieces we're going to make, well, not necessarily for this figure, but for other ones, is going to be on a T-pose. And once it's on a T-pose here made symmetrically, bring it across and pose it on this figure. So starting with the shoes, I'm going to hide this across. All right. Bringing things across from one tool into another doesn't put it in the center where you think it would. So we've got a little button over here, S pivot, brings it to the center. You got to press S, F back to focus in the middle. These are a little big, but let's make them more interesting. So, all right, so we're going to just position them roughly sort of over the feet. Their feet are a different shape, that's fine. They're taller than what we want, so we'll just cut off the top. I've still got the slice brush active. There we go. Cool. All right. Keep the heel, but we'll tweak it a little bit, and let's put some straps or something going across. Well, so have a look. All right, let's do some different leg coverings that I haven't done before. So let's do the ones where it goes underneath. So I'll duplicate this so that I can come back to the other one. First things first. So now I've got two sitting on top of each other, and I want to draw over the other one. So I've deflated it so that now when I draw, it adds something new. That way I don't touch the original shoe. All right, go across and over like this. But okay, this is going to look quite a little bit too thick, so we might just get rid of this one later on. But for now, not worry about that. Let's just make the piece. And then we just got to fill this in. So make the brush bigger. Cool. So we'll need to put like a little buckle on that piece. And so let's firstly tidy up these shoes. So we know we don't need this top bit anymore. At least we don't need any detail on it. So let's keep sort of the part that goes, that's part of the shoe. I don't necessarily know where the shoe is going to end, but I like to always have a layer underneath to tell me I've put in a crease that's too deep, or I've lost the shape of the piece. So just smooth this out. Across. Cool. All right. Now let's don't mesh that up. I want this rim around the bottom of the shoe to stick out a little bit further. So I'll turn this one off and just flatten a little bit. Little bit. This is sort of making it a bit smaller as well, but I can do the opposite of flatten, which is sort of pull up around here. I can do that. Build it up with a build up. There we go. I'm very neat with this. Get a bit of that effect of pulling the shoe forward. All right, now that's not flat, but that's fine. Match with the heel. Now turn this down. Add more of a crease, and then that gap is a bit. It's not the worst. All right, polish. All right, that will be easy enough to paint. Obviously that's not the neatest through there. So easiest way to neaten up, I reckon, at the moment is just to decimate, slightly dial, contrast, smooth, and then I'll come back. I don't know, down, turn up the resolution. That was a bit too. It'll be to do. Doesn't matter. That's sort of a moot point because it's going to be so small at the end and we won't see it. But okay, turn this one back on. So I've got, now that I've made that shoe a bit smaller, this one is sort of tearing out. So I'm going to slice. Actually, can't do that just yet because it's not straight from this side. So I'll do that. Sort of cut that front off again. Just get rid of the shoe that was there where I don't need it because I'm not making anything here. Same deal on that heel. Yep. That doesn't matter. That's not very crucial. Get that a little better. Put more of a hard edge on those. A lot of time to spend on shoes. I think one of the big things with doing digital models is I want to be able to reuse these assets later. So at the moment, I'm trying to make them not use too much of something that's already pre-made, but uh, for figures down the line, I haven't got a boot with this sort of covering on it. So I do want to keep that. All right, turn off that. Yeah, we're just going to move into a layer. Okay, cool. So now let's fill this in. Right, so the folds in here are really going to be dictated by the pose, like crouching or running. As in, is the foot flex? Is the foot um, uh, the opposite of flex, extended? Not totally sure. Turn that wrist out. But for now, I don't really. A, don't know that. B, I know that I'm going to be using them standing up for the moment. So I'm just going to put in some generic ones. Sort of a sharp line across the front. And then a bit like that is normally a good spot to start. Then that gives you the first sort of crease to start working from there across. Yes. And just going to be a bunch of little ones in here for the moment. So we know it's being pulled down to the bottom. So a couple that sort of play off that handy. There you go. So let's do the same thing on this side. Pull it that way. Pull it this way. Okay. So not really sure how I'm going to connect these two. I might even get rid of that bottom and do that as a separate bit. So we pull this one out. We get it to sort of here. Then it's got to get stretched again. This might become one. Let's just that rim around the top. That's it. The rim around the top is an important one. This has to be sort of a strong sort of edge so that you can come and edge highlight this. It'll be the same along the bottom. More important that whatever is here is sort of flat across the top, or it's a 90-degree-ish edge, so that there's something that's paintable and it doesn't, when it's printed, it doesn't blur sort of onto the layer underneath, which will be the pants. In this case, it will be the boot. Well, I just so all right, that was it. That's all right. So we've got these pieces now. Let's go quickly. I think we'll cut off the bottom and put a little buckle sort of on maybe this side. So if I go, mate, just move that a little bit. Cool. All right, so this piece here we're going to replace. I'm going to leave that heel at the back for the moment. So insert cylinder. So lots of pieces, not really made from scratch. Like it's in that shoe, you could have started from a cylinder, and in fact, that probably might have actually been the quicker way to do it. Would have been to start from a cylinder. So this strap under here is sort of a cylinder in the sense that it's really flat and then stretched. So I'm going to, so I've started with a cylinder. I've shrunk it down. Now I want to pull it out to the side. That's really going to sort of be the basis of our cylinder. This way it's just got sharp lines. I'll remesh it so it's a bit smoother. Put that in. Cool. So that's going to sit under here. That. Okay, cool. Now I can put a little buckle in. So in here, push that in. Oh, got to wait through the quick save. Once this is done, I'll pull this out further so that there's more of a gap between the shoe and this sort of covering piece here. If you know what that's called, please comment that. I don't really remember. Get rid of that. And let's cross the top like that so it's got a bit of a top. Pull it out. That. Deal. Pull it in. Okay, it's sort of stuck. It's sort of got something it's sort of stuck to. We need to put a little buckle in there. I have a little tool for that. I won't go through making the buckles at the moment because they're actually very simple. I've got a little tool in here. So I've got modeling, all the pieces I need for that, the miniatures, then sculpting tools, and a bunch of brushes. So these are insert brushes. So I'll go to armor buckle. I've got a couple across the top. And we just this out. I'm going to split. This piece at the bottom we don't want. Get rid of that. Place on. Pull that out just a fraction. Get that there. All right, that's got to line up obviously with the piece underneath. There we go. Cool. All right, mirror and weld. Put that on the other side. Same with that strap. Mirror and weld. So we've just got this bit in here at the top, which sort of is a bit of a nothing at the moment. But if I come down, not to stitches, it's to this one, belt details. Just put a little something in there, just so that there's a piece that's actually sort of separating those two. Oh, cool. Need that. We need this. We need this. Merge down. Merge down. Yeah, there we go. Cool. There are our shoes. So it's clearly tugging on that piece there, pulling it down. We can still come and tweak this one, but up. There we go. We just want to make sure that there's sort of enough of a gap now between this, and that's sort of crisp. So that's pretty good. All right, so now this shoe asset is created. Make sure it's turned on so it's visible. That's our shoe on our figure. We need to pull it up a little bit further forward. Can be seen. So the calf muscle will probably be quite thick, so it's not quite wide enough. This is way too skinny underneath, if you wasn't clear what I was referring to. So anyway, we've got this here now. Alrighty, let's come back to that part. Now, someone just said something. First time responding to a comment. Can you make some quick tip videos too? Yes. So, well, I'm hoping with this one that I can either cut some of it up or timestamp it when I'm talking about different things. But as I've said, like in the post for putting this up, this year has been a year where my daughter has been born, married, and a whole bunch of other things. So I did intend to do way more YouTube stuff for sculpting when I did the stuff at the start of the year, but I haven't. There's just been so much stuff that's just unfortunately fallen down in the list of priorities. As you can imagine, probably having a daughter sort of replaces a few of the things you tended to do. Anyway, but hopefully next year. So anyway, there we go. There's our shoes on the figure. So we want now. I think it's important to work out the cut of the shirt and how that sits over the pants, depending on what sort the way we want to make those pants look. So starting again, another sphere. Because this guy is pretty front on, I can sort of do this symmetrically, but it's probably might be better if I come across to this one. So if I come to here, turn on the belt, it's in about the same spot. So I start with a sphere. I just cut across the top like that, cut across like that, slide it up. If you can learn to picture all of the different parts of a costume as parts of a shape, all that are sliced up, it really speeds things along. Like there we go. We've got that sort of shape now, which is sort of how the that will go. So I'm going to just remesh that with keep groups. When you slice something like that, it makes it a new group. If I remesh and keep groups, now it's made this bottom face a different group, which might be a little bit handy in a minute. All right, so here we need to just smooth down this on the top here, so that it sort of sits under the belt. The next one will be slice this way. Now pull down sort of, if you pull down from the front, okay, you get the sort of the look, but we've now got this sort of apex corner in here. I prefer to avoid that because it's not fun for doing the printing supports. But if we pull it down broadly from the center, that's too narrow, broadly from that middle, it's sort of, now it's essentially self-supporting because it builds up this layer up and up and up, and now it reaches this bit at the top. Anyway, so now I can pull that corner out a bit, so slide the whole thing a little bit across. So mirror and world, good, they're separate. That's the important thing. Now I can come in, just flatten that out a little bit. Just, oh, we need to do one more. Clear mesh, keep groups. Tried it a bunch of times. So this gap is too much of a gap, but it's so that we can sculpt onto this one and keep the two bits separate for the purposes of splitting it into the half bits later. So we might want a bit of trim going around the bottom. So the way to do that's going to be the same, and I'll explain that in a second. But you could do that. You could do fancy trims such as the patterns, sort of like that, a whole way across. And then that's something, you know, for people to paint on. I might do something a little simpler with this one and just do sort of a trench the whole way around. So
something that's going to come up an awful lot is the minimum size of details. I think the minimum size of a detail should be about 0.5 mm for printing. That's sort of, it varies from lots of the computer sculptors. The physical guys all do this without thinking. But so, for instance, if I start this trench here, and we'll work that the whole way around, making sure it's even, and I want to measure that, what's this? All right, it's 0.4 of a millimeter. So it's about 0.5 mm. 0.4 of a millimeter is sort of the width of things like the nose, a link of chainmail, things like that. So 0.4 of a millimeter is essentially correct. Another way of doing sort of what I'm doing at the moment would be to mask and extract. The masking method works except when you get to places like this. But it's just as simple to draw it on, and then come back and polish it in a second. Actually, I guess you could slice it in a plate. Cool. Like this. That the whole way around. So this is just an extra little thing. So you can paint the bottom bit a little bit lighter. If you do any freehand across the bottom, this gives you a natural sort of border. An extra little bit to edge highlight, something like that. There's another point of oh, if you were to pose the figure, so this cloth would be running, as in a big sort of fold out to the side. I would do this later once it's already posed, and then just make sure you get it correct, because when you try and position this like it's flowing fabric, it will mess up a lot of this that you've already done. So when I say mess up what you've already done, right now we have a trench with sort of 95 degrees, 95 degrees. So the trench sort of looks like that. So that way when it's upright, it's sort of supporting itself for printing, as well as you don't have any sort of sharp edges. And I decimate this before moving on. So yeah, the other method to do that is to mask the whole area out and then extract it. So if you're going to do that, you would put in your mask, make your triangle pattern, stuff like that. Now, obviously, this is quite rough. You need to make sure, for one, the other reason that's tricky is because you've got to have the resolution up high enough where you don't have this. But once you've done that, not shrink, sharpen, invert, and extract. So, you know, you got to have the high enough resolution to do. Anyway, so come back, decimate. All right, just gonna leave that for now. It's cool. That will do for what we want at the moment. Underneath, we do want some chainmail. So we'll get to that one in a second. We need to go back to this one. Cool. So yeah. Now, because these are two separate objects, we can go auto groups, select one, mask it, but that way I can see where the other one still is and get that center line so that the two sort of meet up under the belt. That forward. So this needs to be far enough over the knee that you can fit a second layer in there. But also we can go all the way out to the sort of the edge of this belt. Feel here, cut. In. right, so I put now the arms to their own tab. That way I can hide them. Now I've got too many pieces in body at the moment. Body, I just want to be the part underneath we shouldn't see at the end. I'm going to leave this on. I turn off hair. The center line sort of going through here. And it's sort of on this sort of curve. I almost want to bring now these two across so that they're sort of following on that shape. We might even find we're bringing the legs out to be a little bit wider side. Okay, let's leave that for now. Turn the hair back on. So arms. All right. So if I now take these two arms, I want to do the sleeves on the next. I want to do the sleeves. So the first, so that I can do an extra sleeve that comes from this jacket piece here, which might be too long. We might want to bring that jacket piece almost sort of up to that height once we come back to the legs. So I'll take the two arms. I'll merge them together just for now. Duplicate. Now make the sleeve, because we spent a bit of time to make sure that the sort of the shape here was right. The idea is that we can now inflate them, and then that will be the layer of our sleeve. But to do that, we need to slice off at the hand. Slice there. Slice here. So this isn't perfect. It needs to come further forward. But for now, so because we've sliced it, we've got polygroup, 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 polygroup. We're just going to select ones we don't want. Roll W, which puts them all together. Roll W. So now I can select this one and go inflate. Put it back a little bit further. That will do. So remesh, keep groups. That just should make this a little flatter. And then from here we'll put in perfect all of the sort of the folds. So this has now made it too thick around here, and it's obviously quite messy in here. So we're going to fix that now. So if we just isolate these two now, we don't need the hands. Let's square these off. So obviously we've got this little dip in here. We're going to get rid of that for the sleeves. Let's go on to Dynamesh again. So start with the seam in the arm. So just go the whole way through, and then finish it on the other side. That and like this. Bit of that one. Out where it doesn't exist. Bring it up here. So we start with that one first because, all right, so there's a little bit of flexion in that hand. That's another one we're going to put in. Bit there. So we've got lines sort of running that direction, that in the way it's being squashed. So I always have the brush for my ZBrush. Again, so size of the nose is sort of how big we want things to be. I have that brush about that. For me, it's around the 13, 14 mark. So I'll leave marks that are, or like heights and dips that are around the same there and there. I'll build it up. These won't be way too extreme, but so I want from sort of this point, the point of the elbow, put sort of a hard line here to the other side, almost sort of across front of the wrist like that. And now make sure this is sort of flat. There. So it almost will become lots of little flat surfaces. This. That's sort of what we're sort of going to start to make. Doesn't matter what goes on the inside at the moment. Yeah, that's the sort of the rule of thumb to put those in. That's too many. Like that's, oh, not really. Worry about that later. We can tidy those up. We need one here. Bicep under the arm here. That way. And that side's less important because that's going to get covered up. But that one across the front is a good one. So it's got a good distance sort of off the hand. We might bring that hand in. We've got to do the other side. Underneath, I'm going to leave for now as well because we're going to backfill from here under. A good thing to do actually would be to do a bit of the torso now to make sure the hand isn't inside the torso. But I'll do the torso once I've got the sleeve, as in the thicker sleeve. So I'll come back to this side. I'll finish this one here. Left. All right. The parts. I need the two. Actually, let's see if I can do it without it. Fill in here. Rid of that. So in this one, definitely going to have way more folds. So pick the corner, going through. There's going to be way more sort of scrunched up bits under this one as well because the shoulder's been lifted up. So the fabric on top of the arm is going to be sort of squashed. In my mini factory, any chance to sculpt Hussites and their leader, I can't pronounce that name, from... Okay, that's a historical request that I need to research. What year is that set in? I don't recognize the name or the place. I recognize the word Hussite. That's about all I recognize. Is that sort of a medieval thing? Dark Ages, ancients? Where's that one from? The moment the focus, obviously, with the historical stuff is it started off being like England, so Saxons, Normans, stuff like that. Then it went to I needed something else. I needed to get my head out of doing the chainmail over and over again because it wasn't going anywhere. I will come back to that one once I've just learned a little bit more, but I needed a bit of a break. So I've moved on to I started with Scottish War of Independence, which was a good niche. Sort of no one was doing it digital, and there was a lot. It incorporated a bit of the like the hard armor, a bit of the chainmail, a bit of fabrics and stuff like that as well. So a lot was learnt doing those guys. Next, though, it sort of moved into a bit of 100 Years War, which is I don't want to go too far into that one yet. I want to come back to that one and do it properly for a good while, but there's still a little bit more to learn. I think before I can actually tackle that one. Okay, this sleeve needs to come all the way up. Push that out. So yeah, at the moment I've got some stuff for sort of really late Normans going into when they're starting to wear surcoats. Let's turn that hair back on. That's like was 1419. Oh. And whereabouts is that? I have Google. I can work that one out myself. That's like what? Oh right, okay. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at just type in the site was 28 mil. What is there? Well, that's coming up. I'll keep working. Can't say I've really heard it. Oh well, some of the figures here are sort of first corps, like the Old Glory stuff, things like that. And some of that's actually sort of similar to some of the Men at Arms. But yeah, okay, you're obviously talking about specific characters and things like that. Well, can't say that I'll definitely get to that in sort of a monthly release. But if you pick a character for next, I pick a specific character and with some art, put it in the Discord. Potentially next Wednesday, that could be a figure um, that I do in this sort of format where it's separate. Um, at the moment, the idea for this one is just going to be either those requests that I haven't been able to get to, and I'm sure I've actually seen this one before, so I'm going to assume you've posted that one before. Um, so yeah, it's one I obviously haven't gotten to yet, and I don't know when I will. But if the figures from the sort of the 100 Years War sort of stuff that I've already done are suitable, then maybe doing one or two of the characters on this Wednesday on a Wednesday night might be really doable. Cool. Yeah. So if you send me some details, then I'm happy to give that a go. All right. So the hang on, released the movie Medieval 2022. One of the wasn't great and would drive you crazy if you have an interest. Yeah, it sounds about right. All right, so we've got this figure here at the moment, obviously where it is. I think he's looking too skinny. So one of the problems is he's just too narrow. I'm gonna make the feet wider because the feet at the moment are scaled down off a human, so they need to be significantly wider. So this piece here is just legs. Oh, sorry, like pants. We can delete that one. These are already separate. Uh, I'm just going to pull them out. Actually, I'll do that from underneath. I'll pull this one slightly forward, pull this one slightly to the side. I'll grab the two bodies. I'll just merge them together. Mask through the middle. On transparent. Just pull it out like that. Just so he's standing in sort of a wider stance. We don't need those shoes anyway. Or that belt. Cool. And we might need to stretch the shoulders out to the side as well. So we'll merge these two as well. So I can just pull those shoulders. Alright, that hand's going to need some extra sort of things going on. Alright, so let's hide. No, we can't hide arms yet. We need to do the thick sleeves. Duplicate. I only need these two. Delete that. Okay, we've got this. Square it off. I'm going to put that sort of across here. Here. Won't inflate this one. Actually, just stretch it by hand. This one's going to be sort of twice as. Jan Zizka is one of the Beast Army leaders in history. He was not defeated in battle, and at the end of his life, he was completely blind. Okay, that might be a fun one. Um, just for the sake that he's blind. Cool. So, purpose of this is I take this one out here. I want to hide the arms and do the torso, do the body, the piece that goes in the middle, because the arms are in the way. But I need to know where the arms are pointing and where they sort of are. But that is in to inform where the folds are. So obviously I'm going to hide beard for this one as well. So what I tend to do across into the body so that I can sort of come and wear off the inside. You know, I really did do it. Sorry, I just whacked my mic. I need to move the screen so because the mic is covering the screen. Hussite Wars were the first European. Oh, we're gunpowder. Oh, hence why it's what First Corps do with their figures. The ones I just looked at. Where the ones where they look like just men at arms with I don't believe they're called muskets. They might be. Whatever the first sort of guns were. Yeah, okay, cool. yeah, I'm not totally sure I'll get to gunpowder units, but I don't mind the idea of doing some of the heroes. But that being said, um, it might go that way. Cool. So now just round these off. Discord is going off. I telling myself I'm not going to look at Discord or Facebook, even though both of the Arquebus. Thank you. Hello, how are you? It's one of those things where you read everyone's names and you've never said it out loud. So is it Miko or Maiko? But yeah, you're in the Discord and the Facebook. I see your name all the time. And you're a good painter, I believe. And I believe terrain maker. But yeah, like we see everyone's names, but I don't think we really pronounce them or ever have to say them. Like the other day at the gym, I was signing in my daughter to the creche, and I realized I haven't written her name before. Miko. Miko. Okay, cool. All right, easy. What are the folks doing? Are you guys painting at the moment, or I would assume everyone's painting. Um, all right, so all right, gonna leave this here. Also, um, duplicate, cut off the bottom, pretending to work. Yeah, that's what I'm doing all the time when I'm actually working and in all right, and yeah, when I'm in the office pretending to work but really just looking at Discord. I reckon the product waiting for you to jump on dark side. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. All right. Well, the quicker this is done, the quicker I'll jump on dark tide. Fuck's sake. Basically a stick with a cannonball at the end. Yeah. Cool. All right. So this is how much of the obviously the front we need to worry about, especially with the arms covering it. So the back. Now take your time. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so hang on. How long has this been going for? I was late. All right. So it's an hour 10. I expected a 3 hour figure. Yeah, no, I was convinced that I had told myself it was 7:30, not 7 o'clock. Hence a little late. And that's Discord again. Okay, so all right, the let's talk about the back fat. Um, so the figure is obviously leaning to the, as in from the back to the left. So that's the direction the fabric will roll. Um, I imagine the belt is sort of tucking in, and it doesn't really show it yet. Is sort of tucking in a bit of his sort of rear, bit like that. But same applies to the back, where there's he's got all this lower back fat that's sort of hanging off the side, as well as probably wearing 3 or 4 layers. So we want this to come over the belt, but not through the belt. There needs to be a gap in under here. So I'll have a look at that in a moment. It's not even just the lower back fat here. It's that. It's all the different bits of fabric. Might leave for a sec. Come back to this when we need. It's pictures on Discord. Oh, okay. That was the Discord going off. I'll have a quick look. Very cool. Right. Okay. Yep. That'll be fun. Yeah, and those figures look cool. It's so that must be like at the same time as the end of the 100 Years of War. So that's why those figures were looking like what I pictured from 100 Years War. Yeah, cool. It's sort of a fun mix. It's right before War of the Roses, where everyone's wearing plate, but it's still got some of the fun sort of elements, where like the reins on that figure you posted, where they've got all the like the bits that are cut in and out. I'm not totally sure what they're called. I call them just the frilly bits, really. But okay, so at the front, uh, obviously one layer is in front of the other. Um, so I'll go with buttons. It's not really going to say much. back layer. And we'll smooth that one out in a sec. Various rolls of tummy fat. Cool. All right, let's turn that hair back on. And we'll turn the arms back on. All right. So now he looks sort of like those English archers when they pulled their pants down for whatever reasons that they at Agincourt they all have the thick build up around the ankles and bare knees. Let's fix that. So back to this one. Down. Pull that up. Okay. That's a sort of a similar distance we've got between the legs. Grab another sphere. Let's go back to the YouTube comment, not Discord. All right. So both legs are pretty much standing the same. So I can essentially do the same sort of like folds above the knee. But I'll just do it on one first. So that bit. So there's the first sort of, well, okay, so under here we've got to have a little bit of a gap between the shoe. Right, so the first layer of sort of the fabric is now sort of reaching the shoe and sort of building up around the edge. This is obviously all way too thick. That in. So this is sort of like the sleeve. The trouser sleeves are really sort of long, but they're held tightly around this. Now they're sort of bunching up sort of at the bottom. So on sort of a flat bit from the knee, I add this one now. You can imagine how this goes sort of up that way. That's how it ends. So the lines are there, just the form is all wrong. It needs to be a little, way more full. Picking that up. This one's definitely coming across that and bright. All right, now that will do. So normally, with all the elements turned on, actually they're the original pants under. So normally from here, that's okay, that looks a bit like a lip. We'll definitely break that one up in a second. You won't do that now. That'll do for now. Cool. Oh, so normally, yeah, we go mirror and world, they're the pants, but because I'm about to put them facing funny directions, I won't do that. Before we do anything, duplicate mirror and world. Not mirror, sorry, not mirror and world, just mirror. All right, definitely going to need to have another look at the inside of this. Like before calling it finished. back. Yeah, the inside of these are pretty good. That's only worth worrying about once sort of the outside is done. All the rest of it's I don't know how much space is left. This one here is pointing at me, but the leg is pointing to the so that same thing here. And then we'll fix how that goes into the so now got to do definitely between actually this whole leg. This one as well. Doesn't quite look. Yeah. All right, we've got to do these sort of a layer underneath here. So I'm probably going to do bits of chainmail under here. So I'm just opening something up in a new window. Alrighty. All right, once we get past. Okay. So talking about at the beginning some of those quote unquote cheats to speed things along. I've got a chainmail document. We're going to use, one of these and probably this sleeve up here just to speed this along. So I tapped here. There we go. Bring that to the front. So I want the chainmail to sit there. I'm going to open one more. And then there's just one more to open up as well, which is going to be the Gambison document, which is this one we're going to steal from it. We might do this one first. So what this gambeson is it's this piece, how this was sort of made is it's essentially the exact same way we did, that piece. We cut it. This one's hollow, but that's not besides the point. Then trenches are dug in. Instead of keeping them straight, they're beveled. And then there's a couple of extra bits thrown in. But normally most of that bit is done later. So this under, back. Now, at the beginning I said we need to leave enough room for 2 layers, meaning the pants and then the chainmail. This is going to become now 3 layers with this. That's why part of the reason we brought that leg back. To be fair, we might need to actually tweak further to fit all the different layers. And that's why we don't worry about all the bits that are going to get hidden by this until the end. All right, so this curve here is like that. It might need to change a bit flatter, but pulled out further in the same way. This piece here might need to get that one. Might need to look at these ones in a second. Duplicate mirror. All right, now because this leg was further back, just shift it all back. Let's split those now. Move this away. This needs to be right at the bottom so that we can put chainmail on later. I really almost want this to sit in line with the pants, and instead of pulling the pants back, just have it sort of sit sort of underneath, so it definitely looks squat. One. So, okay, I'll leave the gamut in for now, because that one's sort of dependent on the others. This arm, funny, might actually change that arm. character pose. And I think we'll take. All right, little side step here. The group. I'm going to keep this one, put this in a new folder, back up. Well as this one. Where's this coming from? I put the wrong one. Ooh. This pose. I'm going to take mirror. Put it here. So, okay. So already established it's got to be scaled down to about 80%. Not going to go through redoing the arms entirely. Squash it to about 80% and squash it to about 80%. And we'll thicken it as we need. Anyway, this one isn't perfect. It will do. Yeah. Yeah. All right, we'll put a different hand in there. Wrap. Got to give him an axe at some point. The axe will just go at the belt. In before wondering where. Could actually do a shield on his back as well. Get rid of the rest of this. The hand is separate. That I can just put that. Later. This will come in. This one actually bigger. Bring that in. Ooh, just for now. So he's clearly watching something he doesn't like happening. No more mouse clicks. Yes, there is a tablet now. No, he's either watching them either test the twirly whirlies from the third Hobbit movie, or he's at the council earlier on and just saw Keely hit on that male elf. He didn't think it was a male elf. Something along those lines. But it's nice and expressionate. So okay, he will need a more of a dwarf face. So if I pull that out wider, the nose. Let's line this up. Needs to be one longer. Better. On the eyes, I will do built-in whiskers. So even though I'm making the eyebrows bigger, I will make those way thicker, and I'll actually give them some fur in a second. But I just want them to be a little bit more pronounced. Yes, getting distracted from the bottom of the legs. But it's one of those things. I've just looked at this, pictured how I sort of want it. Now, I want the hollow cheeks. And he needs definitely that strong sort of safe big bone around the. Okay. Now, sort of want there to be that little line in here where this comes out. I imagine this is what it's like, sort of comic book artists, where they put in sort of the lines to tell an expression, and but yeah, in the way that there's that line here and there's that triangle to show that the eye is going down. I imagine it's a similar sort of thing, but the difference is we fill it in. Really, the more I do minis, the more I think it's almost just like an anime or a comic book or just any animation sort of art style. Same thing in here. I want that to be a similar sort of B going across that. There we go. So there's that sort of little ridge going up to the eye, giving him his less than impressed smirk. Yeah, sort of what on earth are you doing? Probably what my wife is saying right now. Just make the nostril bigger. Without a cool brush for hair strands, take a peek at Deco Curve Drag and use Alpha 29. Alright, I'll have a look. I'll show you how I'm gonna do it in a second. Actually, might go on to that one now. Actually, while we're talking about hair, I'm absolutely sure what you're gonna. When I look that up, it will be something worth using. But I would. I still prefer. It's one of those things where people use cloth simulation for cloth, and I know we haven't done any cloth folds yet. Oh, actually, sorry, stand corrected. We've done a few. I still prefer to do them by hand to put them where I want them to go. All right, so now we're actually going to see an awful lot more of the front of this figure. So we've got to fix that shape in there. Oh, and I've also lost part of that sleeve. That's all right. Let's hide the hair. See that smirk. Give him all of that belly back because we're not hiding it with the arm. Now we're all going to look after Christmas. Alrighty, that sleeve is sort of not quite down to the elbows. Scale that down. This is what I'm talking about with the. Just work out what shapes it's meant to be, or it's near enough to. And that's probably way quicker than how I did it. The first time was just. It sort of had a couple of indents already in it that I could just reuse. But this way, that's just. Now flatten across the top. Pull it out. So this one on here, get rid of some of that. Keep some of it, but it's not all totally relevant. Actually, one of the problems with not doing the middle torso until later, I don't really know when, like where it stops and where it starts because of the hair, but I feel like I'm going to cover that anyway. Let's cover that in there. As in the shoulders, we're going to cover the shoulders with it. That's way better. That's a much better pose with the sort of the torso, the legs facing sort of this way. The torso is facing, the legs are facing this way, the torso is facing this way, and the shoulder is being pulled back. So it sort of it opens up the figure. There's this nice sort of shot where he's sort of stepping forward to you, looking at you. That's a much nicer pose. All right, so we need to definitely pull this forward now. So let's come back to the chainmail because I'm not even convinced about using it at the moment, just the way the legs are all sitting. But for now, that's a good enough start. All right, so now that this shoulder's actually been pulled back, isn't same with cloth, I'll just do a quick inflate through for 10. Yeah. I don't think cloth theme is worth using it. I've heard that there's a couple of other sort of, as in if you know me as a mini creator, there's a couple of others. Obviously, I think you'll know. I won't say names because I don't know if it's 100% true, but I think one of the other bigger historical ones who does similar stuff to me, I've heard from someone that he uses cloth sim, and it's not it's not like to my taste in the same way that I don't like totally realistic figures. I can appreciate that it's done very well, um, but I like it when you've got those sort of lines that I was talking about here. I think that it looks like it's been done with like a traditional uh, like chisel sculpting tool, and so that way it will paint up next to all of my metal figures. It will look the same, and that's important, to me. But I get, yeah, for diorama pieces, it's a different game. It'll be interesting though, like with cloth sim, like it's obviously simulating something falling. It'll be interesting to see what AI does with, like, those AI images. What happens if you feed an AI thingo all of the different ways that I've done fabric, and it will count like how many different things did you do here, and then work out that rule, and then be able to do it. Obviously, yeah, we want that. Um, so watching this happen, if this is something that you're thinking about or yet to think about, how do you know where to put all of those sort of folds in? So part of it is looking at like reference photos of people. Where do things fold? That's very important. But also looking, I spend an awful lot of time looking at like other, not other sculptors. That's not the right word. But there's figures that sort of catch my eye in the way that, oh, I like how the fur was done here or the cloak was done here. Like I like the cloaks where they've got lots and lots of, like, they're really thick. They've got lots of volume to them. I don't like the thin ones where they're really straight and clean and sleek. That they still look cool, but um, and I do them from time to time as well. They have a place, but I like the ones where they've got loads of sort of thick bits going all over the place. Um, keep those. I keep those models sort of on my desk on hand as sort of inspiration. And same with a lot of these folds. It's like, okay, how are they treated by someone who knows more than me? And not, I wouldn't. It's not in the sense of copying the sleeve one for one. Although there is a skill, so not a skill. There is something to be learned by in the same way drawing you do a bit of tracing to sort of learn how to move. It's more understanding the shapes and the lines. Like when you start everything from a sphere, you learn how to put things into a shape, like keeping the sleeves sort of a circle, sort of profile, things like that. Yeah. So all right, that's that sort of sleeve. This might get a nice trim. I'll just have a quick read. And yeah, exactly. You lose a lot of that. Like you lose a lot of the subtle details when you go to a print. So it does have to be like huge and bold. Yeah. So this is sort of ready now for the final sort of details. I might get this done in another 2 hours. Maybe not. Um, let's grab the hair back. So I might stretch this a little bit wider over the shoulders. Let's just do some quick bits in there. Just a couple of little marks and show that the fabric is being sort of tucked in. That will be heated down here. So it's in. Yeah, no, I'm going to do the beard. I keep getting distracted. Sort of things like that will fill out the bottom. Yeah. Anyway, I'll leave that for now. So let's look at that hair because you're talking about that brush, um, which I'll have a look at once I'm done with this. So, I think that the more important thing, not the more important thing, the first important thing is the shape. Like at the back, it's not. It can't just be when you're at this point completely flat, and this isn't. It has got some ripples. I'm going to start by making those just a little bit bigger. Follow that later. Here, definitely going to smooth that out because I want that to be much closer to the skull. Sometimes I start with the head and then like deflate the head so it's inside the other one and then add the hair on top of that. But dry regular spheres. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Alrighty, so after quick save. So I'm going to leave the front till last because I might separate this this bottom part off till later. Um, like there's the rings in the beard that's being sort of laced through. I'll save those till the end. So starting with the most important sort of strand. So the ones starting right from the center. So I'll make the brush down to sort of that 12, 13, 14 mark and just put in a couple of important ones that are going to have a nice sort of S curve to them. And they're going to dictate sort of where the others sort of flow between. That's quite high at the moment. It will come down. Sometimes I like them to be inverse of each other to get some nice sort of symmetry or pattern. I don't know if I'll have it come all the way down to the bottom. But then also, so once there's a couple in from the top, which are going to be like, so this one here, instead of coming all the way over, I'm going to have this one come underneath the next one. So then there's, this one is going to get built up on top of that layer and have come from underneath. So it's going to get this sort of twisting spiral, which get interesting. So shapes like that. So at the bottom, it needs to come off sort of individually. Sometimes they'll come the other way, but away from the piece. That. Same deal here, actually. Got to be a little bit. Okay, so they've gone that way. So my hand likes to do shapes like this. If you're right-handed, left-handed, things like that, these shapes are going to come naturally. So it doesn't hurt every now and then to flip it, because then you'll start to get some of these other ones as well. There we go. That's kind of something. And now that's making a lot of depth in the hair, especially when you come to start doing brands like this now. Sure, this is a hairdresser's nightmare. Another big one to come up. Yeah. I'm going to dynamesh this down to 700. Fine. Yeah, my hand. do things that way. That one. It might be nicer if that comes front, not all the way, but less of not enough of those because where they're dead bald on top. Sort of gets a little bit repetitive. I did a dwarf model. I'm sure if you're listening to me now, you've listened to the Two Towers podcast. I did a dwarf model for them, and it was a character piece where it's a dwarf whacking an anvil, and it was bald on top. So, like the last dwarf character I did was bald on top. One before that, I'm sure was as well. Sort of gets a bit samey. Yeah, that's coming along. See, that's looking like caricature, which is exactly what. I'm going to tuck the beard back underneath for this one. Sometimes they fray out to the side, but it looks less well kept. I think the hair at the back can be unkept because either that's what's under a helmet. I was going to say it's not what they can see in a mirror, but I don't know if they have mirrors. But you could make this massage as a separate piece. Don't tend to. Doesn't. I don't know if it necessarily feels more sculptural too. Um, but it's one of those things. It's sort of a holdover from. I guess if you were doing it out of green stuff, you would do it in multiple pieces, as in different layers. But just feels less computer generated when you do something out of one piece. Okay, so we've got these rings in here. I used to just draw them on, so my model's back from February. But what's actually so much brighter is to put actual rings in there. Not sure what the last figure I did where I actually did this was. Oh, hang on. I did 6 dwarves not long ago. I updated 6 of them. And I had to do new beards. And I did this instead of just drawing them on. And that made a world of difference. I'll just combine those because I might just remesh them, move them off. So in here now, I still do the plaiting by hand. That way they've got sort of structure to them. Sort of, this is a perfect circle. I can't mess that up. Dwarves reserve their mirrors for bringing light deep into the mind, not for vanity. Puffing his pipe angrily. There you go. Yeah. Oh, how much time do you reckon they spend in front of the mirror though, styling their beard? Or if they don't have mirrors, do they do each other's beards? How do you style your beard before a mirror? I guess you looked in the water. How old are mirrors? Are mirrors a relatively new thing? So this little strand here is sort of trying to come in from out at the side, just to show that like getting a little bit too thick. But the beard is coming from a lot of the hair on the front. Um, then in here we want that. Some sort of pattern. I actually know. There we go. I might just like take away from the middle. And then in here. Now I'll have this coming out sort of away from itself. different, yeah, different to the way above. I don't know if it makes much. I saw that shot of Durant with an unbraided beard and rings. Yeah. I don't actually. Um, but yeah, I can't exactly say I paid much attention to that show. I think we spent a bit more time making fun of it than we did. Yeah. But I'm not going to go into that. Not here. Yeah, sort of. This one started going out to the sides, and it might still take one of them. That I don't know. I'll come back to that in a sec. Yeah, there's an awful lot. No, I'll come back to that in a sec. Yeah, there's an awful lot of his beard is flowing into this thing at the front. We haven't we've sort of neglected that area. Pull that down. This is this is all neck hair at the point. Oh, actually, that's not left it. It. Then I can thicken this thing up to get some extra. Sorry, he's got curly hair. But some of this, like doing figures, is a bit of costume design. But doing this one, I'm kind of feeling of hairstylist. Well, as in knowing a bit of costume design is handy for figures. I only studied a little bit of it, and it was my least favorite thing out of the diploma I did was costume design. I much preferred the model making units or set design units. But what I'm doing now, I'm kind of wishing I'd stuck with costumes. I did enjoy the makeup unit, as in the prosthetics and stuff like that, which is also handy for this. But yeah, pay enough attention to hair. Yeah, cool. There we go. So that's step one of doing the hair is putting enough of the bits of the braid in. Go over it. Actually, so the next thing is going to be to same as ever, decimate and smooth out. Brand who's really into dwarf, send him a screen. Cool. So up that country just brings out a bit more thickness. That's all right actually. I'm happy. I was sort of worried that it might go to shit with that other arm, but no, no, that's all right. So okay, so the hair at the moment is not bad. It's decently sort of lockish because of the brush. I'm going to come in now with the standard brush, which is more of a point to it. Bring it out even further. On top, though, I need to make sure that they're all sort of in line. This is still with Sculptorist Pro or Dynamesh. I still call it Dynamesh because in Blender, the tool for adding polygons as you go is called mesh. Yeah. I wonder if this getting a little bit too much depth to it. As in, those gaps in there are quite substantial. Trust the method. Cool. So most of the important ones back are done. Now go in and just where there's a gap, like in here, add something so it's not flat. All right. All right. Need to come back to that pipe. Yeah. Okay. Thought it would take 3 hours, and then thought it might take 2 hours or 2.5. Now, just remember that there's the pipe and this side of the model which has been neglected. Thinking, yep, it will definitely be that 3 hour mark. That was a good guess. If I was quoting someone for it, I would be right. So now, alrighty. The hair is got a lot of sort of shape. Dynamic mesh was just got a lot of shape to it. These bits are still quite blocky. Back and tidy some of them. But yeah. Anyway, so I'll go back to the YouTube comment. That's how I like to do hair. So the first layer with the brush, they build up, then decimate contrast, and then just add a little bit more, and then I try and get some of that messy sort of look. Done that on a lot of figures recently, and I like how that works. It's definitely a time-consuming way of going about it. Yeah. You think hair would be one of those things to build up a library of hairstyles? Yeah, and then one last smooth. Let's put this. Yeah, hair would be one of those things you build up a library of, but I haven't. I still do it one by one at the moment. Good. But thinking I might not even do any chainmail. Thinking I might just leave that as it is, or maybe do a thin chainmail like under here, between the gap, sort of close the gap, and then maybe at the sleeves. But kind of liking it just without all of that. Let's hide the beard. We've got the belt to do, so I luckily don't need to worry about any of the pieces across here. Grab this one. How many times have you seen this piece being reused? If you've built or painted any of my figures, right? Gonna change it up. be fair, I change it up a lot of the time, but because this one sees an awful lot. And then I think every time I change it from being the shape it was, it becomes the shape it is now. It's still not unique. The question with these things, right, is at the end of the belt, not these things, is should it have these things in there? Sort of, I don't really worry about painting them. I find it just a fraction too small. But all right, so this is an excuse of why the chainmail should be there because this looks way too silly. But from the other side, it makes sense. But it's because there's that big gap in there, which I think I did make intending to do. Done from a not a simple point. I don't want to add the axe on it. The axe is going to be quite big and sort of ruin the look. I put the axe in the back of his belt this time instead of the front. So like down here instead. Just not at all. All right. Viewer interaction. Where should the belt go? Not the belt. Where should the axe go on the belt? Should the belt sorry, should it just be at the like on the right hand side? Like is in tucked in here? Just opening up the axes. That to the belt. I'm gonna use this axe. Luckily, it can sort of tuck in here. A bit long. A bit short. Maybe the length. Okay, so it would sit here and everything else would fold around it. Does that ruin the look of the figure? Doesn't as much as I thought it did. It would also help this arm printing. No, guess not. I'll leave that for a second until a better answer, a better suggestion shows up. And if a better suggestion doesn't show up, yes, that will do. It's actually hide it though. So this one, that's but it's still big enough. Underneath. Yeah, I guess the axe. Yeah. In that case, this belt, because it's got the weight of the axe underneath, is gonna get pulled down. Sorry. Tab. Yeah, pull down the axe. Exactly what I did. Apparently, whacking the anvil. Well, that means that this now hit it, and there's going to be a bit of fabric sort of now resting on that instead of going down. Now play with the angle. Let's change the actually what goes there a little further. Want this to hug the body sort of. So the further, this is an awkward, little awkward. I don't want it to clash with this arm very much. I don't want it to clash with this either. But no one's got to notice if I twist it a little bit. There we go. So that way, this when you tilt this one back, won't entirely be supportless. Now, because you're going to tilt this figure back sort of that far, this should build up on itself if long as that's there. Made a mistake by accident. Any mistakes I made on purpose. That's enough that it fills that little gap between here, which we get backfilled anyway. So remember this spot that looks awkward if you're OCD like I am with this, because it will get hidden or fixed up later quicker than if we were to do it now, which I tell myself and I always end up fixing it, but I'm trying to force to not do this. Okay, so this belt is still not completely straight. There we go. Almost finished. Leaves. Oh, actually, yeah, the pipe's in it. I feel like keep feeling like the pipe is finished because of the. This is what I was talking about a second ago with the drinking, so for the hair sometimes. Not many figures warrant eyebrows, but if there was going to be one that did, well, I've done a couple. But when there are ones that do, they are usually quite furry fellow. And if you paint that, it will help show off the expression. I think maybe because you have the eyes, but that fur, not fur, keep on it. The eyebrows will give you that sort of line. That's fine. Don't need to worry about it. So, okay, we've got the clothes left here. Pretty obvious. Needs a bit of grease like that. That's too much. All right, just leave it like that then. Go in here. So, okay, let's do the folds in the fabric. And then we'll see if we want a layer of chainmail. I think happy with the position they're in relative to each other. I think it's time to merge together. That's why I haven't been too fussed about this line in here. We're going to do a lot of pulling it forward, pulling it back. Don't need that one. Well, this. Don't combine that yet. Don't definitely combine that. Keep this as small as possible. There we go. That's those. And now with the feet, keep this one, and let's merge these together. Because now all of the changes that are sort of going to happen to this will get done as a group. It's a bit sharp, but I do want it sense of that line or that flat plate. But I sort of want to keep this sort of as simple as possible. So thinking about where you're going to highlight this when you paint it. So edge highlight here, 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 here. You don't have any edge highlights up here, so it can get quite dark around there. But giving you these lines here gives you something to edge highlight. That's at the top under the belt, where I find with my painting, I tend to go a little bit too dark in areas sometimes. At 9:28. This is pretty much the 2 hour mark. All right, just finishing. Really. We're just doing all the. So this is again what I was talking about with that sort of comic book style, where I sort of want there to be that line there. Might actually just leave these sort of drawn out right at the end for the demonstration. Same thing in here. So that means I want this to be a flat plane. To get matched. Cool. Forward, come forward. Yeah, it's a bit rough at the moment. But no, that's fine. Okay, so there's definitely going to be room for a bit of just do it really. Yeah, because it's going to get tight when it gets. I still think I'll leave it. Pulled out. Right, but it doesn't matter. That's okay. So for now, that's pretty much that sort of overcoat. Now we need to add these pieces. Mix, do those things. Then after the pipe is pretty much finished. It's in pretty much finished in that you could print it, paint it, not notice anything was missing. Now let's isolate this piece slightly because, as I said, we're collecting. But there's enough hair under there. Same on this. Well, actually, make something a little definitive. This is sort of a little bit like that, what I was talking about earlier, where I end up with this sort of angle in. But, yeah. If you've got any suggestions for any last details, chuck that in a comment. I'm going to add the gambeson under the sleeve, maybe a pouch or two, and call it. No, I will actually change something. I might change that axe to a pickaxe. That might be fun. No, I'll leave that for a second. I won't do that just yet. Might save that for another time. That axe is sort of already blended bits. Pickaxe wouldn't be. A pickaxe would sort of screw with the silhouette of something that's already quite neat. Alrighty. Current. Just, just a fraction. Get a little bit of extra. Let's put some extra flat bits in around here. I like how angular my is, which is going to get softened out before we finish. But it gives it depth, not depth. It gives you lots of, as I was saying earlier about cloth sim. You know, you need the detail to be there to paint. This will be there to paint. Yeah. Anyway, that's so when we do the canvas and under the leaves, I'll probably be able to reuse the same part. As in, so I'm going to take the gambeson is, you know, very straightforward to make. I'll cover that, but it's essentially the same way. You know, that's cut, but it's you can use symmetry that's on an axis with the radial symmetry. You just want to take that much of it. And duplicate that just so I've got a spare that I need to touch. Put that piece sort of here, like that under. Now, the pull does move things around. If I hold Alt, it pushes against something that's being selected. And of course, autosave. I haven't read a whole bunch. Yeah, I have. Beating, saving up to be a captain for my Mikey, his lads, how nice it is that they're playing orcs for everyone. Been a really interesting video, but I need to pop off now. Have a Merry Christmas. Thank you, mate. I just think you. Yeah, that's a good point. I could have had his hand on his shield. I hate when someone puts a good idea in. Once I consider myself almost done, and someone puts in something better than what I've already come up with. I I kind of like the idea that, like, obviously, you know, captains need to be like character-esque in the sense, you know, iconic figures, and you can obviously use things that are more fun than um, just you know, the dude with the biggest axe or something like that. Let's pivot it back. But so yeah, that work. This would work like great as a nice sort of. Normally dwarves have a Scottish accent, but I almost picture more of an English one. Like she might need a little bit of that line through that sleeve. Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, what I was getting at is I pictured at the moment picturing this more as like that because that angle is that acute angle I keep talking about. That it's that angle. Almost. What I've noticed over this year is my attention span has got drastically better. And if you're in my Discord watching me sculpt, probably noticing this. Cool. That's what I meant by like the arms are both sort of similar enough that I'll make the first one and it will do the same job. Oh, it tucks in the axe. Now this has down a little bit. That it's just pulled tucked in. neatly. Yeah, I missed. All right. All right. One last checklist before I merge this whole thing together. So, got still a little back. Leave that again right at the. Don't want this hanging up the top. It needs to sort of be hanging when it's like out and then in. Yeah, this surfaces, axis tucked in, belts there, the beard's got canvases there. Between the legs, I'll do a second. Yeah, we did talk about inside the leg. I think we can still wait on that. Okay, let's call it. Nothing here is going to change. So merge visible. Then insert merge one. So actually I'll just hide everything. Just open this one and the base. So this is now made up of all the separate parts, but in one group because we're going to merge it together in a second. We'll just take this away. Just push things in. Make sure that in enough. This. Oh, hang on. Someone's got to be screaming it. Pipe isn't done. Actually, screw that. Just delete. Let's do the pipe. So we want it to be roughly the same size as this. So that's in arms. I'm going to duplicate that, lift it up, and spin it sort of forwards. I'll be able to make it out of this. So I was thinking photo up of a pipe somewhere that I would make it. I'll still make a fresh. So probably go here, stretch, slice. A bit more stretch. That one. Yeah. Remesh. Now this piece here is another sort of cylinder. Worst thing having finished everything else, then I have to go back to that. There we go. That's a very simple pipe, but that's all. Okay. Big. Make that. All right, let's leave that. Yeah. Roughly in front of the old one. Turn around with that symmetry. Pivot. Place. L1 just in the right spot in the mouth. Just Cool. So just resculpt these fingers. So, all right, why don't we hide everything? These two. This one, don't need. Thumb is sort of fine. This pinky finger, way further. Those fingers are going to come. So they're sort of close. Need to look at my. Get this here. These ones instead. All right. Right. There we go. Again, but honestly, I think it's going to be all right. Just look a little bit too wiry. That's better. He's holding the pipe. There we go. These. Just want them to be a little bit more graceful. Alrighty. Push that fraction. I'm not going to worry about the chainmail because it'd get too. If it's going to be here, it has to be up here. If it's up here, it's going to be way too messy around the arms. There's just too much going on. I'll come to pouches or something in a second later, but I might leave that. That sharper so it lines up bigger. Line the base. Yep, that's good. Sort of lots of triangles. Triangle, triangle, triangle. Yeah, definitely heavier at the bottom. Make sure I import the right one. So, pretty sure I'm ready now to merge the whole figure together. Not crash. Now, just give everything sort of a once over smooth. This gets rid of any hard sort of edges, like between layers. And we'll start backfilling and fixing things like that. But just go around sort of as you see them. So first things first, one of the first things to fill is between the legs. This right at the top. Put that there. So bottom. In that. Alrighty. So can't really be saying Some of the ways to do this is either make it a separate piece of fabric that's under here, or cut away at it so that it's just sort of filling the gaps. That's what way I'm going to approach it. Here, just a little close. That one back. So in here now, just with the pattern brush, pull everything sort of forward, sort of smooth that out. In there, honestly, I'm not going to worry about. Cool. Now there's no big gap between the legs. So if the arm was still running across the body, I would have backfilled it, but there's not much of a need. The only thing left we could do is add a little pouch. Health accessories. Oh, just think. Does it fit the mini? I think it will. I just don't want it to cover up the hand. Might make it thinner. I don't want to get too small. But if I pull it like that, yes. Big. Those inflate on account of scaling them down. Go that without. Definitely cleaner without. And it feels like it needs to turn it on. Yeah. This is, a model is made by me if it's got both a pouch back on a belt. Every figure has this. Going as far back as December. Oh, cool. Alrighty. One last once round. Yep. Alright, I'll call it. And done. Actually, not quite done. One more step. So getting a model from this point to exporting needs one last decimation. This one takes the longest because it's the sort of the most complex figure. So because it's got all the parts are connected. So this model now, because it's been dynameshed, is essentially one shell. Whereas, but before it was all little pieces. Dynamesh is what combines things to be, one shell. But yeah, so I'm decimating it to 4%, which ends up being 15 or so. Yeah, I don't know if it's megabytes or whatever it is. That's just so that light sheet can handle it. Printing. Still going. need an elevator music button or the countdown clock. There we go. Cool. Sick. Done. All right. So actually, just before and after. Before, all the tiny little polygons. Done. Easy. Finished. Okay, cool. I'm going to wrap it up there. That was alrighty. So this is pretty much the workflow I take to do a figure these days. It's some take a head that's already done, tweak it a bit, take other parts, tweak them to fit the figure, things like that. There's still a lot of of work in the sense that you need new pieces or you've got to do the fabric special for each figure, things like that. So it's not like there's much copy and paste. It's just you're reusing the same assets in the same way that traditional sculpting, you reuse helmets or reuse pieces that you could cast. Yeah. All right. So the idea with this will be sort of a weekly sort of thing. That way, people can suggest special figures that I might not get to otherwise. I can work and talk without getting distracted with the Discord. So next Wednesday is the 28th. I am going to do a bit of work on between those days. So I'll come back with a single historical piece. So I might take actually. Someone was suggesting a character from. It's written there. I'll know it when I read it. That Hussite Wars. I might take one of those and do a figure of that, and then in a fortnight come back to fantasy. Anyway, well, thank you for watching. This figure will be in the January release.